Okay, I am excited to show you a Bible that I just got the other day, and I believe that this is a pretty new printing. This is, I believe, from this year, 2019 is when I'm recording this, and I think that this CSB Ultrathin Bible that you see here is from this year. And right off the bat, what impressed me was that it came in this really nice box. And you can see here the box is thick and has a really nice look to it. I'm really impressed with this box here. So this is the Espresso Black Leather Touch Edition, and on the back of the box here you see some of the features. It's a 9-point type, ultra thin design. It does have Smithsonian binding, presentation page, 2-column text. Some of these things aren't really anything special, but they are the features. So it is a 9-point, and I'll show you the 9-point in the, this is the CSB, which this gives a little bit of information about the CSB, developed by more than 100 scholars from 17 denominations. I do have a video that I did about the CSB translation, if you'd like to look at that, and there's the ISBN number. Retails for $29.99. You can get this, I believe I got this on Amazon for a little bit less than that, but if you get it on CBD, you can get it on CBD for even less than that. I think more in the $20 range for the non-indexed, no index tabs on the side there. So again, a really nice box, and as we get into it, there is the Bible itself. And I was really excited to show this because I'm really impressed. Now, this is probably the newest edition that's out there. I think some of them from 2017 maybe aren't exactly the same as this. I know when I got a large print Christian Standard Bible, it just came in a sleeve. So this one seemed to be maybe a little bit of a higher price point, higher quality. But again, you can still get it for about $20 or a little more on CBD right now. So there's a look at it. It has a two-colored cover to it with perimeter stitching and stitching on the middle here. And then the spine, I thought, really looks classy, looks nice. It has what I call a combination of a classy and modern look. The modern look of the CSB logo, but really just kind of a nice, I would say, classy look to it. Maybe you don't agree with me, but I think it kind of combines those two aspects, in my opinion. And as we get into it here, that's just a paste down liner, which is what you'd expect in this level of quality Bible. The cover page here, title page, and there's the information on the inside. We've got the copyright 2017. Again, I believe that is not when this was printed. From what I understand on CBD, this is this year's printing, but the CSB came out as an update of the HDSB in 2017, and I do also have a video on the difference between the CSB and the HCSB, the earlier edition, if you'd like to check out the differences. So that gives you, as you would expect, a little background on the CSB translation. So all of that's pretty straightforward, what you would expect. And the Old Testament here. And I really wanted to show you the print in this, which looks a lot like the Pew Bible, a little bit smaller print. I think the Pew Bible would be more in the 10-point range, and this is considered a 9-point. But what really impresses me, this is kind of the best of all worlds printing, because it is paragraph, and if you like the paragraph format and like to be able to just uh, read it more um, in that kind of a format where it reads a little bit more like a standard book, but it still has the verses, and the verses are bolded. They're bold characters, bold numbers. So that really helps them to stand out, even though it's in paragraph format. So if you're preaching or teaching, you can still find those verses very easily. The 9-point font in the CSB, whatever was chosen by, I think it's 2K Denmark that did the fonts, which is very popular now for publishers. And I might show this in comparison to some other thin lines, just so you can see. For example, the Nelson NKJV thin line. I'll show that with this on another video probably, and the ESV thin line. So stay tuned for that. I'll do kind of a comparison of the thin lines. But the font that the CSB has is what I would say is a taller font. It's not super wide, but it's on the tall side. And it is still 9 points. So if you need large print, I wouldn't say this is large print, but it is a good size for a 9-point font. And we'll go through the Old Testament here. I'll show you the poetry so you can see what that looks like in here. So the font really reads well for its size. I'd say it reads a little larger actually, whereas the Nelson Comfort print, at least in the NKJV, reads maybe a little bit smaller than the font size depicted. Still a good font. That's more of a bold font. This is a lighter font, but it is very, I think, easy to read. So even though it's 9-point, it is really a good size, especially considering it's not large print and it's in a thin line edition here. So we get to the New Testament, and there is the title page for the New Testament. I also really just like the layout. I think that the font just hit the nail on the head when they designed this. In my opinion, I think the CSB, again, it just combines, it is a modern look, but it still looks classy. It doesn't look overly modern. There's something almost traditional about it, or elegant about it. And for those of you who are familiar with the CSB, it still has these bolded verses referring to Old Testament quotes. And I love that the headings are in all caps. Again, the verses are bold. The numbers for the verses are bold, and the quotes in the Old Testament are bold. So, what a great layout. Now, this is the red letter. This edition does have a red letter for the words of Christ. And I would say that the red is maybe a little bit lighter than I prefer. It looks okay on the camera, but in person it's probably a little bit lighter than I prefer, but not really pink the way that some Bibles can be almost like a too much of a pink look to them. This is pretty good. So that gives you an idea of the overall look of the inside of the Bible. And then when we get to the end here, not a lot of helps, not a lot of extra features, but that does keep this Bible nice and thin. It says on the box it has a concordance, but it really doesn't, unless this is what they consider a concordance. It's just where to turn and some topics. So, I mean, that's nice. That can be helpful to someone, but I wouldn't call that a concordance. So I don't know why they put that on the box, unless that's what they were referring to. Table of weights and measures, which I think is pretty standard in the CSB. You get the comparison of what our measurements are versus the Hebrew language. I think in the text itself they use our measurements, the U.S. measurements, but they do show you what the Hebrew measurements are. It might depend on the measurement, but I think that they use feet and yards, things like that. And there's the maps. The maps in this are on just kind of a cardstock paper. It's not glossy. So some of you will be very happy about that because you don't like that glossy paper. And they're really colorful and nice, and with modern printing it's really what you would expect. I think too that they get the right amount of maps in here for the kind of Bible it is. Even though it's a thin line, it still actually has quite a few maps. And when we get to the final maps here, it's actually pretty extensive. There's the ministry of Jesus. You'll see that there's also a map of the ministry of Paul, the missionary journeys of Paul, which is good to see. So isn't that great? I mean, one thing missing on the Bible is it doesn't have references, cross-references. It does have the translator notes, but it doesn't have cross-references. But for a reader and for a carrying Bible and for a teaching, preaching Bible, I would say this is a really good all-round Bible. Really impressed with this. And the ribbon in this is, I think, a single-sided satin brown ribbon. The other side is not as shiny. But it is definitely adequate ribbon. Looking at the length here, it looks to me like, yeah, it reaches through the whole page there. So it's a good, adequate size ribbon. It doesn't look flimsy or low quality. It's not as high quality as what I saw in the Nelson thin line that I have. So again, I'll show that on another video, but I'd still say it's definitely adequate and fits the quality of the look of the Bible itself. The gilting on the side is also adequate. It's not the shiniest gilding in the world, but it's still nice. And again, has this synthetic cover, which that's the thing I'm not sure how that's going to look and hold up over time. This part here is very matte, and this is shinier. And I'm curious if this is just going to kind of curl up and get bent a lot over time, so we'll see. Maybe if that starts to happen in a while, I'll give an update on it. But I could still see this lasting a long time. And so what I want to say about this Bible here, I would say that this is a good all-round, all-purpose Bible, utility Bible. You can use this for teaching, again, because it has a good layout and has nice bold verses. And even though it's a 9-point font, it's still readable. It's still pretty large. And it's also just so portable. So between the layout, the portability, and then the look of it, I think for the $20 to $30 range, and of course it's in, if you know me, you know I really like the CSB, I'm going to rate this Bible definitely a solid 9, even a 9.5 for its price point. Now that's the newest edition, the 2019 edition of the thin line CSB. It's actually called the Ultrathin CSB. So I wanted to let you know about that. And if you're looking for a good all-round Bible CSB version, I highly recommend this. So thank you so much for watching this review from a Frisch perspective.